Every generation, it seems, takes a solemn vow. Never again, they declare, gazing back at the ruins of the past, convinced they've absorbed the hard-won lessons. They swear they are wiser, more evolved, immune to the old follies. And yet, with terrifying precision, history doesn't just repeat its grand tragedies, it rhymes. Humanity, it appears, possesses a profound, almost cyclical amnesia. We walk directly into the same catastrophes, merely dressed in different clothes, believing this time, it will be different. This is the story of that recurring illusion. After the unimaginable carnage of the Great War, a powerful sentiment swept across the globe: this would be the conflict that ended all conflicts. Empires crumbled, millions perished, and the world recoiled in horror, vowing to forge a new future, one built on diplomacy, cooperation, and an unbreakable peace. It was a profound, collective aspiration, born from suffering so immense it seemed inconceivable that humanity could ever willingly descend into such madness again. A hopeful, yet tragically naive, belief. But the peace was fragile, built upon shifting sands. The Treaty of Versailles, intended to prevent future aggression, instead sowed the seeds of bitter resentment. Imposing crippling reparations and territorial losses on Germany, it created a festering wound rather than healing the continent. A generation grew up under the weight of this perceived injustice, fueling nationalist narratives that would, in time, become the rallying cry for a new, far more destructive chapter. The ink had barely dried before the lessons began to fade. From the ashes of war, the League of Nations emerged, a grand experiment in collective security. Its mission, to prevent future conflicts through dialogue and disarmament. It was a noble ambition, a direct response to the failures of pre-war diplomacy. Yet, it lacked teeth. Without the participation of major powers like the United States, and with no real enforcement mechanism, the League was often reduced to a forum for empty pronouncements. A crucial warning sign, ignored, about the necessity of resolve-matching rhetoric. As Europe grappled with its post-war hangover, a new catastrophe struck: the Great Depression. The global economy spiraled into chaos, wiping out savings, fueling mass unemployment, and shattering faith in democratic institutions. Desperation became a fertile breeding ground for radical ideologies, promising swift, decisive solutions. People, once hopeful for peace, now yearned for stability and order, even if it meant sacrificing freedoms. It was a societal vulnerability, a historical pattern replaying itself with chilling familiarity. Into this void of despair stepped charismatic demagogues. In Italy, Benito Mussolini promised to restore Roman glory through fascism. In Germany, Adolf Hitler, exploiting national humiliation and economic ruin, offered a scapegoat and a vision of racial purity and imperial expansion. They spoke not of peace, but of national strength, not of cooperation, but of absolute obedience. The appeal of strongman rule, offering simple answers to complex problems, proved irresistible to millions yearning for a way out of the crisis. History offered its first clear warning. Hitler's rise to power in 1933 marked a dangerous turning point. Almost immediately, Germany began secretly, then openly, rearming, a direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles. New tanks, aircraft, and battleships rolled off assembly lines. The world watched, uneasy, but largely passive. The memory of the Great War was too fresh, the economic crisis too consuming. Many clung to the hope that these were merely internal affairs, or perhaps a justifiable reclaiming of national pride. The first real test of resolve met with complacency. Emboldened by the lack of strong international reaction, Hitler began to test the boundaries further. In 1936, German troops marched into the demilitarized Rhineland, a blatant breach of the Versailles Treaty. 2 years later, Germany annexed Austria in the Anschluss, greeted by cheering crowds in Vienna. Each step was a measured escalation, a probing of the international community's willingness to stand firm. Each unchallenged aggression reinforced Hitler's belief that the Western powers lacked the will to confront him. The pattern of concession was set. Facing these escalating provocations, Britain and France adopted a policy of appeasement. Led by figures like Neville Chamberlain, they desperately sought to avoid another war at all costs. Every concession was rationalized as buying time, a necessary evil to prevent a greater catastrophe. They believed Hitler could be reasoned with, that his ambitions were limited. This was not cowardice, but a profound misreading of an expansionist ideology, blinded by the trauma of the previous war. It was a policy born of hope, but tragically paved the way for disaster. The climax of appeasement came in September 1938 with the Munich Agreement. Britain, France, and Italy agreed to allow Germany to annex the Sudetenland, a region of Czechoslovakia. Chamberlain returned to London proclaiming a peace for our time. The belief that a piece of paper, a handshake, could satiate an insatiable appetite for conquest was a monumental self-deception. Czechoslovakia, a vibrant democracy, was sacrificed without its consent, left defenseless. The cost of peace was the principle of collective defense, and a clear signal to aggressors. The dismemberment of Czechoslovakia was a devastating betrayal. It proved, unequivocally, that Hitler's promises were worthless, and that appeasement only emboldened him. Within months, Germany seized the rest of Czechoslovakia, shattering any pretense of self-determination or limited ambition. The Western powers had surrendered a strategic ally and vital industrial capacity, gaining nothing but a brief, illusory respite. The moral compass of Europe was lost, and with it, the dwindling hope that diplomacy alone could avert the looming disaster. In August 1939, the world was stunned by the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, a non-aggression agreement between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, ideological archenemies. This cynical alliance included secret protocols to divide Eastern Europe, most notably Poland. It was a masterstroke of realpolitik, removing the threat of a two-front war for Germany and giving the Soviets time to rearm. For the rest of the world, it was the final, horrifying confirmation that the moral boundaries had dissolved. The stage was now set for the ultimate betrayal. With the Soviet Union neutralized, Hitler turned his gaze to Poland. Despite Anglo-French guarantees to defend Polish sovereignty, the German war machine was poised. On September 1, 1939, German forces unleashed a new form of warfare, the Blitzkrieg, upon Poland. Cities were bombed, defenses overwhelmed. It was a lightning strike of unprecedented ferocity. This was no mere territorial dispute, it was an act of total aggression, a calculated gamble that the West would once again falter. This time, however, the line had been crossed irrevocably. The invasion of Poland left Britain and France with no choice. Their guarantees had to be honored. 2 days later, on September 3, 1939, they declared war on Germany. The world watched, horrified, as the fragile peace shattered. The lessons of the Great War, the promises of a never again, had been utterly forgotten or willfully ignored. Humanity had, within a single generation, walked directly back into the abyss. The greatest catastrophe in human history had begun, a chilling testament to our capacity for amnesia. The lead-up to World War II is a stark, terrifying blueprint for how societies unravel. A devastating war, a flawed peace, economic collapse, the rise of extremist ideologies, ignored warning signs, and a catastrophic failure of political will. It wasn't a sudden explosion, but a creeping erosion of principles, a series of small, ignored compromises that eventually opened the floodgates. The unthinkable became inevitable, precisely because people believed it couldn't happen. The past wasn't just a guide, it was a ghost whispering warnings. But why? Why does humanity, seemingly so intelligent, so capable of learning, repeatedly choose to forget its hardest lessons? Part of it is generational amnesia. Those who experience the trauma pass away, and new generations, unburdened by direct memory, find it harder to grasp the true cost of inaction. Complacency sets in. The comfort of the present dulls the sharp edges of past pain. We intellectualize history, rather than internalizing its raw, visceral warnings. We see facts, but lose the feeling. Consider our own time. Do we not see echoes? Rising nationalism, global economic disparities, the erosion of faith in democratic institutions, the seductive appeal of strongman politics, the dismissal of international cooperation. The faces are different, the technologies vastly more advanced, but the fundamental human patterns of fear, division, and the search for simple solutions in complex times remain startlingly consistent. The warning signs rarely shout, they whisper, incrementally at first, until they are a deafening roar. Just as in the 1930s, societal divisions are often exploited, scapegoats identified, and fear weaponized to rally support. The complexity of global challenges is distilled into simplistic narratives of us versus them. This emotional manipulation, unchecked, gnaws at the foundations of empathy and reasoned discourse, paving the way for radicalization. When critical thinking is replaced by tribal loyalty, the preconditions for collective delusion, and ultimately, collective catastrophe, are dangerously close. We've seen this play before. Perhaps the most dangerous mistake of all is the belief that it could never happen here or it could never happen again. This assumption of exceptionalism, of being too advanced, too enlightened, too sophisticated for history's grim repetitions, is precisely what makes us vulnerable. It fosters complacency, dulls our vigilance, and allows the insidious creep of extremism to go unchallenged. The past isn't a foreign country, it is a mirror, and sometimes, the reflection is unnervingly familiar. To ignore it is to invite fate. The story of World War II, particularly its origins, is not just a historical account, it is a profound warning. It reveals a chilling truth about human nature, our capacity for both incredible progress and catastrophic self-destruction. The only antidote to this cyclical amnesia is constant, unwavering vigilance. It demands critical thought, historical literacy, empathy, and the courage to challenge injustice, however small. The past is never truly past, it lives in the present, a perpetual test of our wisdom, our will, and our commitment to truly learning its hardest lessons.